Winston. Let's head back to Marketplace on WBEZ.
This is Marketplace. I'm Kimberly Adams. As much as the trade war is influencing what we see in the markets and what shows up in our meals, so too does climate change. Take, for example, domestically harvested shrimp. Maine shrimp are small, pink, delicate, and some say delicious enough to eat raw. But raw or cooked, the shrimp haven't been available in recent years. This season, fishermen and consumers were hopeful that a survey this winter would reveal that the shrimp population had recovered enough that some might even hit markets or restaurants. Caroline Losnick in coastal Maine has more.
Gary Libby is busy working on lobster gear in his workshop in Port Clyde, Maine.
This is my trap I'm just finishing. These are my buoys. I painted them earlier. They're pink and green. These ones here show up good from a distance.
Libby is 67 and has been a commercial fisherman for half a century.
This is what I do in the winter when I'm not fishing, try to keep my gear in good shape.
He'd love to be out fishing for Maine shrimp, but he can't, and he even sold his shrimp boat and gear years ago. Except for very small catches for science, Maine's commercial shrimp fishery has been shut down for 11 years. The population is considered depleted, and scientists say that warming waters in the Gulf of Maine are hard on shrimp. They think they're marching north. Before the closures in the mid-'80s and 1990s, Libby would pull in 1,000 pounds a day.
And then towards the early 2000s, we was catching 1,000 pounds for every hour we towed. We was coming in with 5,000, 6,000 almost every day.
Back then, those tiny shrimp didn't bring in big bucks.
50 cents a pound, maybe.
But still, shrimp filled a niche in the cold months when fishing offshore for other species is too dangerous. And the little pink shrimp had a big impact.
And it was just such a part of our winter culture here.
That's Ben Martens, Executive Director of the Maine Coast Fishermen's Association.
You know, shrimp was something that when you drive down the coast Route 1 in Maine, you'd see people on the side of the road selling shrimp.
At its peak in 1996, the shrimp catch in Maine was about 6% of all seafood earnings in the state that year. But the moratorium stopped all that until this winter.
So when there was this announcement that there was going to be a very small, limited fishery that would allow fishermen to go and try to show that there were shrimp in the ocean, there was a lot of excitement.
And the 7 Maine fishermen would get paid for their catch.
And unfortunately, they did not have a lot of great success. I also talked to a lot of fishermen who didn't think that the shrimp were there because they were believing in the science and what the data had been showing over the past decade or so.
Martens says the boats that went out knew what they were doing. These are fishermen who know the ocean. They understand shrimp.
You know, they picked the right people to go out and chase those shrimp.
But warming temperatures and predators hurt the species. Squid, which love warmer water, have been moving in on the shrimp. Dr. Kathy Mills is a senior scientist at the Gulf of Maine Research Institute.
Even if one condition becomes favorable for shrimp again, the population would need time to reestablish.
The official numbers aren't in yet, but it seems the shrimp haul was nowhere near the catch limit of 58,400 pounds, and the disappointment has spread around the state.
Yeah, we was counting on the Maine shrimp.
That's Kendall Delano Jr. He owns Delano Seafood Market and Shack in Waldoboro, Maine.
We use them in the shack as deep-fried shrimp and shrimp salad rolls.
Delano got no shrimp from the winter catch, and he has 220 disappointed customers who are on his waiting list.
But I've had people message me and say, I don't care, I spend $25 a pound in the shell because we miss them, we haven't had them, we got a taste.
Delano is holding out hope. He says shrimp come and go in cycles, and there have been years when the population crashed and then rebounded. He's crossing his fingers for a comeback. In Portland, Maine, I'm Caroline Losnick for Marketplace.
Like Kaylee Wells was mentioning earlier, the housing market is a tough one, with high mortgage rates and home prices, plus low housing supply. All that can be especially discouraging for first-time buyers. And yet, despite these obstacles, there are still folks taking the plunge. That brings us to the first installment of our new Adventures in Housing series, all about first-time buyers.
My name is Naisha Brooks. We live in the city of Denver. We are first-time home buyers. We closed on our home in May of 2023, and we are a family of 10. We were on Section 8, and we had given ourselves 5 years to be on Section 8 because we had been renters for, our entire adult lives. We just said, for the amount of money that we're paying, the market price really isn't that much more off than what we're currently paying for rent. Why not invest in ourselves? And my husband, his parents, they had purchased a home when he was younger. Unfortunately, when his mother passed away, the home no longer stayed in the family. And then on my side of the family, the only homeowner that I know of is my grandmother. So, think about generational gaps. We are the next generation to have accomplished home ownership. The dream scenario for us in our price range doesn't exist here where we are. So we had to readjust our dream. I definitely have panic attacks during the process, but immediately I became like a mini credit guru. I started becoming obsessed with our credit, and I started to learn how to, attack things on our credit reports that, did not look great in the eyes of lenders. And then I became obsessed with budgeting. I still keep this as a habit. I write down every bill and I budget those bills to the penny. I can tell you exactly when something changes because I know what the bills are. The house was beautiful. It looks like a dollhouse. So when we first seen the house from the outside, we were like, it might be kind of small. But when you walk into the home, it's a tri-level house. And my husband and I were like, this could be our first home, our fixer-upper, the changes that we said we would be willing to make, that was here. And then we were outside talking to our realtor, and this hummingbird just kept flying around our head. And I had just started gardening, so I had become obsessed with attracting hummingbirds. And I just felt like that was like an omen of, we'll meet you here if you stay here. We ended up closing on the house for $430,000. We've moved before, but this is it's different when you're moving and you're saying, this is our home. We accomplished this. And it was wonderful seeing our kids run in and be like, this is our house. This is our house. This is it.
Naisha Brooks out in Denver, Colorado. We can't do this series without you. We want to hear more from first-time homebuyers. Marketplace.org/adventures in housing.
Marketplace is supported by Progressive Insurance, providing direct car insurance rates side by side with other insurance carriers. Customers can see rates and find an option that works for their needs. Now that's Progressive. Learn more at Progressive.com. And by Sold a Story, investigating how the education system got reading wrong and takes you places getting it right. Sold a Story, available in podcast apps.
This final note on the way out today, since we were talking about the fishing industry earlier, yesterday the White House issued 2 executive orders many in that industry are celebrating. One directs federal agencies to roll back regulations the administration determines are overly burdensome. Another opens up about 500,000 square miles of a marine national monument located between Hawaii and American Samoa to commercial fishing. Several environmental groups are criticizing the orders, which, like just about every move from the White House these days, are likely to end up in court. Our theme music was composed by BJ Liederman. Marketplace's executive producer is Nancy Fargali. Donna Tam is the executive editor. Neil Scarborough is the vice president and general manager. And I'm Kimberly Adams. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we will be back on Monday. This is APM.